Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as I move the mic closer to my face, what is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Going to be taking a look at this Thursday night football slate. Not the greatest of games. We got some talent on the field, right? Jacksonville, Tennessee. I guess I shouldn't be complaining. 2 months ago, I was wishing for this game on Thursday night football, right? So not the greatest talent on the field by any means in terms of both teams, especially at the quarterback position. But we have some spots to break down. Thursday night slate, showdown. Obviously a crapshoot. I mean, how much more of a crapshoot does it get than this past Monday night when you had a quarterback getting injured, a tight end who was owned getting injured on a showdown slate, and everything just went to crap, right? Odell going off, whatever it might be on Monday night. So I'm shooting this on Tuesday at 4:43 p.m. East Coast time. So just keep that in mind in case any news breaks, because we do have a couple of questionable players going into it. DJ Shark is questionable. Chris Conley is questionable. At least right now, right? It's limited stuff in practices. The Titans, as of Monday, did not run a full practice, which makes sense because usually that won't happen when you're playing on Thursday on a short week. But they said that Mariota was a non-participant. Probably nothing major, but keep an eye on that. All of that, though, said, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Sal Vetri. I do cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, NBA, WNBA, and MLB streets. I have exclusive content down below on Patreon. If you are interested, you can check that out. It links up to all the different sports that I cover over there. More exclusive content, lots of stuff discussed in the packages. Check that out if you are interested. I do have a Twitter at SalVetriDFS. You can follow me over there. I will be live on the Awesemo channel on YouTube Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 11 a.m. I'm now doing this full time. Thank you all for the support. And by the end of this week, we should hit 10,000 subscribers. I'm projecting at least by this time next week, next Tuesday, 10,000, likely by the end of this week if the same sort of growth and interest in this channel remains, which I hope it does, right? So thank you all so much. I appreciate it. If you do want to be a part of this community, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button really to join this community. It's totally free and it allows me to just reach more people like yourself and hopefully give them valuable information. Let me know what you think about these videos in the comments down below. Thank you so much. If I do miss something, let me know in the comments. I try to analyze every single player on these slates. Maybe something falls through the cracks. So let's get into it. It's early on. I'll be doing my tiers for this slate over on Patreon only if you're interested. So we'll start from the top. This is not ranked in any interest. It's just sorted by Draftkings salaries based on my interests. So Derrick Henry, have to have interest in the guy who's just, the offense is running through Derrick Henry in the running game, right? Mariota's not throwing a ton. We have 20 plus touches in back-to-back weeks, I believe, for Derrick Henry. But he's just getting work now in the receiving game as well, which is slight work, but more than he saw last year. He ran 10 routes in week 1. We know the 75-yard touchdown is not going to be repeatable. But then he saw 3 targets in week 2, which isn't anything fantastic. But for a guy that we weren't expecting to have any work in the receiving game, seeing 5 targets through 2 weeks isn't a ton to kind of harp about. But 40 targets, if that projects out to, if he sees upwards of 50 on the season for Derrick Henry, yeah, that's like double than what I would project, if not more, for this guy. So it's looking like they were actively trying to get him involved in the receiving game. Makes sense. Nobody can tackle the guy. He's an okay receiver to good receiver. He just hasn't had the ball put in his hands enough. So running a lot of routes through 2 weeks, more so than he has, is good to see. And again, $10,600, it's a fair price point for a guy who, if the game script goes the way, and this game should be close, so neutral to positive game script for him is more than likely, then yeah, 20 touches is what you would expect. Leonard Fournette's a guy I have more interest in, though. $800 cheaper. Look, his offense is going to be ran by Gardner Minshew, who's looked really bad. Look, he looked okay against Kansas City, but people overhyped how good he looked because he did it in garbage time when Kansas City was up by 20 plus points and not caring, playing soft coverage. So Leonard Fournette has seen 12 targets in 2 weeks, right? That's really good. They said they were going to get him more involved in the receiving game. He was on the field for 97% of the running back snaps. There's nobody behind this guy. Raquel Armstead, the rookie running back they selected, isn't going to get snaps. He just really didn't last week at all. In week 1, he saw like 1 touch in the backfield. So I get it. Leonard Fournette is not an efficient runner by any means. He's never been in his career averaging like 3 yards per carry. Exactly what he averaged last week at 3.1. This is a very difficult matchup. We've seen Tennessee shut down Nick Chubb, and for the most part, that Browns offense, they made them look really bad week 1. Part of that is because Baker and the offense just look bad. Part of that is because Tennessee's defense overall right now is actually looking pretty good. Right now through 2 weeks, right there in terms of pushing a top 10 defense. I think they ranked number 12 overall. They ranked top 10 in some categories, right outside the top 10 in others. And then we saw them last week against Indianapolis, again, albeit against Jacoby Brissett, but make that offense look really, really poor overall. So Fournette, it's a tough matchup, But when you're talking about a one-game showdown slate, a guy who's going to be on the field nonstop, I would project 90+% of the snaps for him. And seeing 6 targets in each of the first 2 weeks is very, very favorable for his upside. Going to get all the goal line work if they actually get there. But you're just talking about opportunities here. And by far, Leonard Fournette has the most opportunities probably out of any other player on this slate. Derrick Henry would be a close second, but Fournette has the better opportunity in the passing game. Delanie Walker, 8,200. Fair price point for Delanie Walker. He leads this team in targets with 12 through the first 2 weeks. Again, Mariota's not throwing that often, but when he does, his favorite target probably is Delanie Walker in the middle of the field. The guy looks fine. Like, after having an injury that kept him out all of last year, he looks fine. He's being used heavily in the red zone, and his snaps are going to continue to increase. He saw less than 50% of the snaps, 48% week 1, and I believe last week he saw over 55% of the snaps. You're going to continue to see his snaps increase week to week. They're kind of working him into this offense, making sure they don't put him in all at once. Too much pressure on that lower body, that foot injury, ankle injury, whatever it was that he sustained last year. 8,200 is fine. Like I said, leads the team in targets. Looks really good. Has a lot of red zone targets already. 2 touchdowns we saw week 1. I like this spot for him, especially when you consider that Telvin Smith is not with Jacksonville. Very good linebacker last year for them. Not with the team this year. And that's a spot where Delanie Walker is going to have a much softer matchup for himself. So I like that. DJ Chark, I do like. Watch the overall news for him. So watch his health. He's questionable. He had 9 targets, though, last week from Minshew. That's pretty good. He's going to have a fantastic matchup on the outside, whether he draws Adoree Jackson. If he draws Malcolm Butler, it's an even better matchup for him. And the big thing here is for all these wide receivers in Jacksonville, only 3 wide receivers have been seeing viable snaps. It's been Chark, Dede, and Conley. Everybody else isn't seeing viable snaps. Marquise Lee didn't play last week. He played like less than 10% of the snaps week 1. Keelan Cole's the only other wide receiver to see snaps, and it's less than 15%. So, no, when you start asking me in the comments, what about Keelan Cole? No, the man's not playing. What about Marquise Lee? Well, watch his health, but he's also not playing. Guys have jumped him on the depth chart. It's Dede Westbrook playing close to 90% of the snaps in the slot, and then it's DJ Chark and Chris Conley on the outside playing all the other snaps. Nobody else is getting on the field. So for sure, I'm going to have interest in Chark. Big play, home run hitter upside. Had a touchdown call back last week. Minshew looked his way a ton with 9 targets. Minshew didn't look his way a ton, though, week 1. Only 2 targets. So we'll see if that sustains. 7,600 is a fair price point. Dede Westbrook going to have the most difficult matchup by far out of all these wide receivers in the slot against Logan. But 7,400 is a fair price point. Got a guy going to play 90% of the snaps. He's a very good slot receiver, runs very good routes, crisp routes, but it's a tough matchup. Like compared to his other receivers or his other receiving counterparts in terms of Chris Conley and DJ Chark, their matchups are much, much better against Adoree Jackson and Malcolm Butler on the outside. Then Dede's in the slot. Dede saw a decent amount of targets, I believe 5 last week from Minshew. The week before, he led the team in targets once Minshew came into the game. It's still a fine spot for him. The price point is probably too cheap, honestly, but the matchup is a lot more difficult than people are going to expect, which leads me to get a little bit less of Dede than many people would realize. Chris Conley, exact same analysis as DJ Chark, except he saw less targets than Chark, but that can easily flip-flop. He's going to have a good matchup. Saw 85% of the snaps last week. I project something similar. Good stat line. He went 4 catches, 73 yards on 5 targets. That's sustainable. That's pretty good, especially when you're out there for 85% of the snaps. And he's shown to be very good and very crisp. Had in week 1, I believe he also saw 5 targets from Minshew. So 10 targets through 2 weeks. Again, these targets are going to be down the field, so there's value there in them, especially him and DJ Chark, but they're coming from Gardner Minshew. So in terms of accuracy, in terms of just how often they're going to connect, there's less overall value in those targets than there are for just any other game, right? It's a worse quarterback targeting a guy deep. So these wide receivers, I'd say be very careful with, especially Dede. Like, he's the one that stands out, but his matchup in the slot is difficult. Just be careful with in terms of getting overexposure to them. If you told me to pick one wide receiver right now, if they're all healthy, I'd probably go to DJ Chark. Him and Conley are going to have fantastic matchups, and Chark seems to be the guy who overall looks like the best on the outside, the most dominating, and Minshew seemed to like going his way last week. Titans defense definitely in play against the Gardner Minshew, and they've looked good so far this season. Not much more to say there. They're $5,200 defense. If you want to pay for them and get to them over some position players at a similar price point, I think it's actually okay this week because those similar position price players are like A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, who Corey Davis will definitely see a tough matchup. A.J. Brown will get to him in terms of his snap count not really being there. So I think they're definitely in play. And then my other 2 interests are the tight ends for Jacksonville. So a lot of the receiving game in Jacksonville, even though a bad quarterback seems scary, right? Ugly slate overall. I would not recommend really playing too much of this slate, if at all, but you probably will, so that's why you're watching this, right? James O'Shaughnessy, 2,600, and Jeff Swaim at 1,400 are both too cheap. Like, I'd probably get $1,200 cheaper for Swaim, but O'Shaughnessy's been playing 66% of the snaps so far this season, 9 targets through 2 weeks. Like, he's active in the receiving game, and he's on the field a bunch. 66% of the snaps. That's definitely probably $1,000 too cheap. And then Swaim is probably $1,500 too cheap to at least $1,000 too cheap. He's a tight end who plays 50+% of the snaps so far this season through 2 games, and he's seen 4 targets in each week. So 8 targets through 2 weeks in 2019, and he's only $1,400. Like, if he sees what he has seen so far this season and he catches 3 targets for 20 yards, those 5 points at $1,400 are actually very valuable. And I wouldn't project that as a floor. I'd project that as more so like a median, like 4 to 5 points for him. But that's pretty good at $1,400, right? So I think there's realistic upside there based on a point per dollar basis. But you have to ask yourself, like, if this game stays low scoring, those 5 or 6 points from a $2,600 O'Shaughnessy, a $1,400 Swaim, yeah, they're worth it. But if this game actually has a higher total, more of the receivers and running backs get active, then those 4 or 5 points aren't going to matter much. You're going to need more of the 12 and 15 point performances from guys who are more expensive. So I think they're definitely in play for their price tags of being too cheap. Jags defense, yes, somewhat in play. They're an X for me in terms of my interest, and then both the kickers are an X. Like, you can get to them if you want to. I never really prioritize them. We saw a kicker in the winning lineup split a bunch of ways on Monday night. If you're interested, you can get there. I really don't want to break down kickers. In terms of my interests, yeah, usually you need one quarterback in the spot, right? It's like 80% of the time or so, somewhere around there in the showdown slates, that a quarterback is needed in the winning lineup. I don't want Gardner Minshew, to be honest with you. I like a lot of his pass catchers, so maybe there has to be some correlation there. $9,200 is too expensive. Mariota at $10K is too expensive. Like, he has rushing upside. They're just not throwing the ball enough. And when they do, he looks terrible. So part of that's because the receiving corps is bad, right? Now you have Jalen Ramsey probably shutting down Corey Davis, and then A.J. Brown not on the field a ton. That's why I like Delanie Walker in that receiving game. But, like, I don't think you have to go to a quarterback this week. Usually you do, but this might be one of those 20% of the time that you don't need a quarterback in the winning lineup, because both are just pitiful, and I could see this being a very run-heavy game. If you had to pick one, I'd probably go to Mariota, rushing upside more so there. Gardner Minshew, though, last week did have a lot of rushing upside. I think he ran a good amount of the time, so that gives him a little bit more value. Right now, I lean no at quarterback in terms of getting one in my lineup, which is, if you've been following me, very rare of me to say, but they're just both so gross. Marquise Lee, no interest. His price point is broken. He should not be this expensive. He hasn't been on the field due to health, but even when he is going to be healthy, I doubt he gets on the field all that much. Corey Davis at $6,000 is very interesting. He was on the field for a ton of snaps last week, but he's still going to be likely shadowed by Jalen Ramsey, which if Jalen Ramsey doesn't get traded by then, right? But 83% of the snaps last week, so there's going to be opportunity, but Ramsey's just so good, right? We know he's so good. So 3 for 38 on 5 targets last week for Davis, but I'm very scared of that matchup. A.J. Brown, the rookie, I like him. He looked good week 1, caught a long pass. His comps were to Julio Jones coming out of college, which is obviously a very good comparable, but he's dealing with an injury right now, and he's still not on the field a ton. I imagine A.J. Boye will be healthy for this game. He has yet to eclipse 45% of the snaps in either game. He played exactly 45% last game, 43% the game before. So, like, in terms of his overall opportunities, they're just not there. 3 catches for 25 yards on 5 targets last week. Again, Marcus Mariota, I don't trust all that much. I think Brown has talent and upside, but a tough matchup for him against Boye, most likely. And, I mean, at best, he'll face Boye. At worst, he'll face Ramsey, which isn't great. And then you see just 45% of the snaps dealing with an injury. Maybe he hits 50% of the snaps, but it's just not enough opportunity for me. Dion Lewis saw 50% of the snaps last week, but he's just not involved in this offense, right? 4 touches to overall last week for 14 yards. They just want to give the ball to Derrick Henry. The fact that Derrick Henry is running more receiving routes out of the backfield now just absolutely crushes any upside that Dion Lewis had. And then lastly, Adam Humphries. I mean, 36% of the snaps week 1. Then he sees 57% of the snaps week 2. It's a matter of, do they run a lot of 11 personnel, right? 3 wide receivers, a slot wide receiver. 3 wide receiver sets is 11 personnel. In week 1, they didn't, because they were dominating the game, and you saw Derrick Henry get a lot of rushing attempts. In week 2, they ran more, but still, he's a slot wide receiver. His snap count in an offense that is going to be run heavy is not going to be a lot of 11 personnel. So, like, 57% of the snaps last week is almost as good as it gets for Adam Humphries on the field, and he's just not touching the ball. So they're not running a lot of 11 personnel, like I said. He's extremely cheap at $3,200, right? He's in the kicker territory, so you can throw a dart there if you want. I just very much worry that he plays 45% of the snaps this week. We haven't seen him. He's been targeted like 3 times so far this year, and I think he has like -1 total yards on the season. He had -1 yards last week on 2 catches. He has more talent than this, of course. It's a factor of them. This isn't the Tampa offense like last year when they were running 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers all the time, and he was on the field like 80% of the time with Jameis Winston able to hit him on those short passes. Now, Delanie Walker is taking over on all those short to intermediate passes more so, and they're just running very heavy, and also Marcus Mariota for the most part stinks. So, yeah, the price point is very cheap. You can get there if you want. Maybe I should list him as an X, like a maybe instead of a no. It's just right now he's not on the field enough, and there's just absolutely no chemistry between him and Mariota. Mariota is looking Delanie Walker's way every single time over Adam Humphries right now. Other than that, everybody else is a no. Keelan Cole's not playing any snaps right now. And there's really nobody else down here that I could even think about bringing up as a question mark to potentially even play. Tajon Sharp's not playing snaps. Armstead, the backup running back for the Jacksonville, is not playing any snaps, with Fournette playing 97%. So that's really it. These are my interests right now. I'll be live Thursday before the game starts. Probably I'll start around 6:15, go to around 7 p.m. So I will see you all then. Hit the like button. Subscribe if this video was informative. You can check out my other videos for this week. I'll be doing my final thoughts video Friday. Follow me on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. You can check out my exclusive content on Patreon, linked down below. Thank you. My name's Sal. You already know that. Peace out, gang.
Hey, hold up. 1 second. Check out this page. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, all right? And if you're interested in Patreon, if you're not already a Patreon, you can hit that button on Patreon, become a Patreon, it will take you right there. You can also check me out on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. And hey, if you're interested, this next video that's about to pop up, why don't you check it out as well. See ya.